song we say to welcome our guests. Come on, y'all sing it. Glad you came. Glad you came to be a part of our fellowship. To experience this awesome move of God. This awesome move of God. There's a river that's still flowing. The right feeling for your soul. Come on, say it.
Are you looking for something meaningful and life-changing to help you move through the challenges of life? Then join Bishop John A. McCullough II and the Friendship Christian Church of Gastonia for an inspirational message prepared just for you.
We're going to say it again.
Psalm 55. Psalm 55. Listen, while you're going to that scripture, do me a favor. Even if you're on the parking lot, go to your social media, go to Facebook, and I know you're viewing here, but go to our page and share, even though you're on the parking lot. Go to your social media and share the stream this morning. We want the word to go forth. Share the stream this morning, even though you're here on the parking lot. Go to Facebook and share it. Everybody, if you will, take a minute and go to your screen. I know you're out here live, but go to your Facebook and stream it if you have a Facebook. If you have a Facebook, go to Facebook and stream. Share it. Share it. Go on and share it, and then come back live right here on the parking lot. Psalm 55. I'm going to begin reading at verse number 1. Give ear to my prayer, O God, and do not hide yourself from my supplication. Attend to me and hear me. I am restless in my complaint and moan noisily because of the voice of the enemy, because of the oppression of the wicked. For they bring down trouble upon me, and in wrath they hate me. My heart is severely pained within me, and the terrors of death have fallen upon me. Fearfulness and trembling have come upon me, and horror has overwhelmed me. So I said, oh, that I had wings like a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. Indeed, I would wander far off and remain in the wilderness. I would hasten my escape from the windy storm and tempest. Look at that verse number 6 again. So I said, and I suspect that there's some folk under the sound of my voice who have said, oh, that I had wings. If I had wings like a dove, I would fly away and be at rest. Is that the essence of what your Bible says? This morning I want to talk about, so you want to get away. So you want to get away. Can you shout that out? So you want to get away. Now this morning, I know that in watching television, we have always paid close attention to certain commercials. And there's a commercial that Southwest Airline uses, and it catches somebody in an embarrassing moment, and then it shifts and says, so you want to get away. In other words, I'm in this situation. Something has occurred that has embarrassed me, and I want to get away. I'm thinking about one commercial in particular where these two old friends, two guys who went to school together, ran into each other somewhere out in public, and they had their wives with them. And one of the men said to the other, let me introduce you to my wife. And he introduced his friend to his wife, and then the camera looked down at her fullness, and the friend said, oh, when is the baby due? And the wife says, I'm not pregnant. And right then, the camera caught his face, and the spokesman says, so you want to get away? And then it says, Southwest Airlines will take you away. Now, when I thought about that, I thought about the words here that David wrote here in this psalm, because surely over reasons more than just a light embarrassment, have you ever been in a situation where you were so pressed, you were so burdened, you have been so perplexed until you wanted to get out of the situation? You've been in a pressure cooker, and the pressure was great, and you didn't think that you could endure the situation. You didn't think that you would be able to handle the pressure. And so this morning, depending upon the crown that you wear, there will be many times that you feel this way. I wonder, is there anybody who's listening who's ever felt that way, that you've been in a situation and all you can think about, if I could just get out of this situation? If that's so, somebody say amen. Yeah, when you think about it, the crown you wear might be that of a parent and trying to raise your children. And sometimes it becomes so stressful that you just say, I want to get away. Sometimes it might be a husband, or it might be a wife trying to do all that you can in a culture and in an age like the one that we're living in, where we're dealing with COVID-19. We're dealing with unemployment and people trying to get their unemployment checks. And we're dealing with all kinds of hatred and bigotry and fussing and fighting and protesting and politics and all these different things begin to weigh in your spirit. And you think for a moment, if I could just get out of here, if I could just get myself away from this pressure. Maybe you have the hat of being an African American in a day where we are still fighting for equality like they were fighting 4 generations ago. My God, you wonder, my God, when will we ever get peace and rest and equality? And so sometimes you just feel like, as you look at television, as you hear the news about protests and shooting and fighting and bombs and smoke bombs and all these different things that are going on, tear gas, you say sometimes, if I could just get out of here. Maybe you are a Christian and you see a time of unrest and a time of division. Maybe you are a patient and you've recently gotten a diagnosis and the doctor has given you a bad report, and in your spirit you think about, I don't want to deal with what I've got to deal with, what's confronting me, and I just want to get away. And so there are a number of reasons that all of us have come to that juncture and that place in life where we say, I want to get away. We often find ourselves in the place that David, the noble king, did. He was not the first, and he certainly won't be the last. We know that often he had been in trouble. David found himself in trouble quite often, but never perhaps had he been brought so low before as to what he was dealing with right here. Now, David, in saying, I want to get away, he's not talking about ending his life. Rather, he's talking about getting away from the present and the current situation. Now, David was dealing with the evils that had become realities. The dark clouds had been long gathering and had now burst over him in a furious way. When you look at the text, David is at a desperate point in his life. When you go to the background, you got to understand that David had come to a place where his son Absalom had decided that he was going to rebel against his father. Now, he was a young man who had great potential, and he was angry at his dad because his daddy had an older son that was Amnon, and then Tamar, his sister, and Absalom were born by one of David's wives, and Amnon was born by another, and Amnon lusted after his half-sister, and then he devised a trap, and he ended up raping her. And so Absalom stewed, and he was angry, and it didn't appear that David was going to deal with it, and David forgave Amnon, but he didn't tell Absalom about it, and so trouble started to brew in David's household, and so Absalom got upset one day, and after about a year or so, he killed Amnon, and then he decided that I'm going to take my father out. You got to handle your family business before your family business handles you. Can I get somebody? Absalom went down to the gates where the people would come and deal with their issues, and he began to steal the hearts of the people, and he said that where is the king? He doesn't have anybody here to hear your cry, but I'm here. And he began to win the people over, so much so that he was stirring up a coup in David's kingdom, and this is the day where there is rebellion and disloyalty among people. We understand that rebellion started in heaven with Lucifer, where Lucifer rose up and thought that he was just as good as God, and he began to rebel against God, and God threw him out of heaven. And the Bible said that he has come down to trouble, to wreak havoc, and he is the one behind the spirit of rebellion. And you find rebellion when people don't want to line up with God. I see this day that we're in a day of rebellion where there's fighting and rioting and so forth, and it is all rooted in the fact that people don't want to do right by God. And even when you think about inequality, you got to understand that it's rooted in rebellion, because there is no human on the earth that ought to be over another human. Am I right? Discriminating over another and treating one better than the other. I want to tell you that racism is rooted in rebellion, because God sees all of us as equal. He's no respecter of persons. So the trouble we're seeing in the earth, the rioting and the fighting and the racism and discrimination and hostility, is all rooted in the rebellion. Can I get a witness right there? And so the spirit of rebellion has been released, and Absalom rebelled against his father, and he was going to take over his father's kingdom, and his father became upset and overwhelmed because of the fact now that Absalom has rebelled against authority and without restraint. You got to recognize Absalom caused so much trouble for his father until his father was ready to flee because of the possibility of his death. And so when you look at those first 5 verses there in Psalm 55, David is pleading with God that I need you to hear my prayer. He said, and don't hide yourself from my supplication. I need you to attend to me and to hear me. He said, I'm restless in my complaint, and I moan noisily because of the voice of the enemy, because of the oppression of the wicked, for they bring down trouble on me. In wrath, they hate me. My heart is severely pained within me, and terrors of death have fallen. You ever been there before? It seemed like that you're at a place you're crying out, God, if you've never heard me before, I need you to hear me right here. Is there anybody there this morning? Somebody might be going through something right now, and your plea is, God, I need you to hear me. God, my back is against the wall. God, it seems like the enemy is wreaking havoc in my life, in my marriage, in my finances, in my health, in my church, in my city, and I need you to hear me. David was contemplating exactly what he needed to do, and that's when he got down to verse number 6, and he says that I said to myself, oh, that I had wings like a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. Oh my God. That's how we feel sometimes, so overwhelmed that you want to just get away from it all. And some have done just that. Some children have felt it and they've left home. Some couples have felt it and they divorced. Some students have felt it and they dropped out of school. Some employees have felt it and they quit their jobs. Some preachers have felt it and they have quit their churches. David must have caught the sight of a dove as he was so peacefully taking flight, and he went way up high and rested in the rocks on the mountaintop. And David, when he saw that dove fly high, he thought about his earthly issues and his troubles, and David felt that this was the solution to his problem. But you got to understand that that's not the solution, because you must understand that even when we desire to get away, our feelings of distress, one thing that we got to recognize is that we don't need to, first of all, seek the impossible. I want to say to somebody this morning that while you're in that place where you feel like you just want to get away, I want to get away, I want to get away, I want to get out of this situation, I want to stop feeling this pain, I want to stop feeling these emotions, but you got to recognize, you got to think sensibly and spiritually. Obviously, David would not receive wings like a dove. Desiring the impossible only makes us feel weaker and more restless than before, because rather than trying to work on your problem and deal with your situation, your time is spent daydreaming about how you can get out of the situation. And then we would go back and spend more time dealing with the issue rather than seeing how we can escape. We would be able to not be overwhelmed, but take authority over our circumstance. If I could win the sweepstakes, if I had done it another way, and it's if, and you're draining all of your energy and you're draining all of your enthusiasm because you're thinking like David, if I could just get away. Some people say, if I could just take me a trip, if I could just buy me another outfit, if I could just go and get this or that, and it's always looking at getting away from the situation. But how many of you know that sometimes you got to stand flat-footed and decree who you are in God and take authority over that problem, over that attack, over that evil, over that sickness? Do I have anybody that's listening to me today? When you get to that point, don't seek the impossible, and then number two, don't put hope in outward change. I said, don't put hope in outward change. Are y'all listening? Listen, in our mind, we always think that things are better somewhere else. We think the grass is greener on the other side. Am I right? Too many folk have come against struggle, and they took off running only to find out that it would have been better to have stood still right where they were. They thought by simply changing the outward condition that things were going to get better. Some folk try to change their outward appearance by doing things to their body. Some people try to change by trying to find some peace. But if there's no peace on the inside, if there's no peace in your mind and in your heart and in your spirit, I don't care what you do, I don't care where you go, it will never bring you the kind of peace and rest that you desire. You can change wives, you can change husbands, you can change cars, you can change homes, you can change cities, you can change jobs, you can change churches, you can change friends, you can change clothes, but if it's not any peace in your heart, you got to recognize that you're going to have the same frustration wherever you go. I know I'm right there. Somebody give God a praise right there. I got to witness Elijah would tell us. For after the victory at Mount Carmel, the Bible said that Jezebel, the wicked queen, got after him, and God was more pleased with him standing boldly before the enemy than running and hiding, because when Jezebel got after him, he ran and he hid in a cave, only to discover that the cave could not protect him, that he was the same man on the outside of the cave as he was on the inside of the cave. And I'm just trying to tell somebody, when you start talking about I want to get away, you got to recognize that no matter where you go, if you don't deal with your problems and issues, you'll be the same person in the cave. The way to find true peace and true rest is to hear Jesus when Jesus said in Matthew 11:28, "Come to me, all ye that are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So it's not in simply scenery that's going to bring us victory. It's not simply in outward condition, but you got to change your heart. If there's anybody close to you, say you got to change your heart. You got to change your heart. Understand here, on top of all that David was encountering that caused him to want to take flight, to make him want to say, if I had wings like a dove, I would fly away. You understand that David said, go down to verse number 12. We're still in Psalm 55. Are y'all still here? He says in verse number 12, he said, "For it is not an enemy who reproaches me." Good God Almighty. He said, "Then I could bear it. Nor is it one who hates me, who has exalted himself against me." He said, "Then I could hide from him. But it was you, a man, my equal, my companion, and my acquaintance. We took sweet counsel together. We walked to the house of God in the throne." And so in other words, he was saying that the enemy that's coming against me is not just my son in rebellion, but it's a man that I trusted. It's a man that was supposed to be my friend. It's a man that we worshiped together. We came to church together. It was a man who teamed up with Absalom to bring, come on now, to bring David down. It was a close counselor, a man by the name of Ahithophel, who teamed up with Absalom. Go back in 2 Samuel and chapter number 15 and verse 12, and you'll find it. I'm not going to read it, but you'll find that it was Ahithophel who linked up with Absalom to bring David down. This hurt David. This was distressing. This was betrayal at its best. Come on, somebody. And the one who was your friend, the one that you had confidence in, the one you worshiped and prayed with, the one you served God together with, you sang in the choir together, you raised your children together. You must know that sometimes it's not those who we consider enemies that bring us distress, but sometimes it comes from right in our own home. Can I get some witness right here? Sometimes it comes from your own husband. Sometimes it comes from your own wife. Sometimes it comes from your own best friend. And sometimes it comes from your own church members. And in the situation that we're in as a people, I got to say this to African American people, that sometimes we find that there's more trouble and heartache and an enemy coming against us right from our own people than it is from people who are outside of our race. I know I'm not by myself. You can discover that sometimes we get so jealous and hateful with each other and that we try to pull each other down, and when there are other people who are already trying to pull us down. And if there's anybody that ought to stick together and recognize our heritage together, it ought to be people of African descent. Can I get some help right here? That's what makes it worse. You can handle it when it's an enemy. You can handle it when it's people who hate you. I can handle it And when I understand that they just don't like me, and I recognize that I can handle it. But when it's folk that's supposed to be on my same team, come on, aren't you tired of getting hit by friendly fire? Come on, I said, aren't you tired of getting hit by friendly fire? Well, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something that before you check out, because I know David said, if I had wings like a dove, man, I'd fly. I'd get as far away. Some people saying, I would like to get as far away from Gastonia as I can. Somebody saying, I'd like to get as far away from Charlotte as I can. I'd like to get as far away from this and as far away from that. Well, before you check out, before you take flight, before you give up, before you get away, before you allow your distress to turn into hopelessness, you need to do as David did. You got to come to yourself. Look at somebody around you and say, you got to come to yourself. You got to come to yourself. Go down to verse number 16. Verse number 16 says, as for me, David started feeling his help. He said, as for me, I will call upon God, and the Lord shall save me. Good God Almighty. Huh? Come on, somebody. David said, wait a minute. I got all this stuff hitting me. We're in a day where we got all these issues that are hitting us. And we got to recognize that the answer is right here with David. And when David said, as for me, I don't know about you, but I'm going to call on God, and the Lord shall save me. Anybody believe that today? And that no matter what you're up against right now, you can call on God because he answers prayer. Is there anybody who believes that this morning? You got to do as David. David said, I'm going to call on God. And then he said in verse 17, evening and morning and at noon, I will pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice. He has redeemed my soul in peace from the battle that was against me. Now understand, David right here had to have a spiritual flashback. He saw pass across the screen in the audiovisual department of his mentality the day when he was alone with the hundreds of sheep and on a deserted mountainside, and a bear came up to destroy him. And he remembered that God delivered him. He recalled that a lion came up to destroy the sheep, and God delivered him. And he had to roll on the screen that day when he picked up 5 smooth stones, and with one he defeated Goliath. He had to go back and remember his own words, for he recalled when he wrote, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters, and he restoreth my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemy. Thou anointed my head with oil, and my cup runneth over. And surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I want to suggest to somebody this morning that you need to have a flashback. You need to go back and remember a time that you know that it was nobody but God who brought you through. David kept on thinking about the flashback, and suddenly something else came into his mind. David was starting to get his energy and spirit back, and he said, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life, and whom shall I be afraid? He said, when the wicked, even my enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, he said, they stumbled and fell. And though an host shall encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. And though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident, that in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. And then he said, I want to encourage somebody. He said, wait on the Lord and be of good courage, for he shall strengthen your heart. Look at somebody near you and say, wait on the Lord. When you feel so pressed and when you feel so distressed, when the enemy is coming hard against you, when you have a desire to get away, I just want to encourage you this morning to hold on and call upon the name of the Lord. I know sometimes you say, like a ship that's tossed and driven, battered by an angry sea. When the storms of life are raging and the fury falls on me, I wonder what I have done that makes this race so hard to run. Then I say to my soul, take courage, because the Lord will make a way somehow. I wish I had some people that park and praise who would decree that the Lord will make a way somehow. I believe somebody this morning picked up the old songwriter when he said, why should I feel discouraged? And why should the shadows come? And why should my heart feel lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, a constant friend is he. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know that he's watching over me. So I don't know about you, but I know he cares this morning. How many of you know that he cares about your situation? I know that you drove up this morning, and sometimes you feel like nobody cares. And sometimes you feel like you're in the world all by yourself. Sometimes you become so frustrated when you look at your circumstances. But I know that our Jesus cares, because he cares that you're hurting inside. Jesus cares. If you're being abused, Jesus cares. If you're under pressure this morning, Jesus cares. If you're facing danger, Jesus cares. If you're losing ground, Jesus cares. If you've been treated badly, Jesus cares. He truly cares when your battle gets hot and heavy. He truly cares when your going gets rough and tough. He truly cares when your days get long and lonely. He truly cares when your valleys get dark and dreary. When your situation gets dismal and difficult, I want you to know he cares. Is there anybody on the parking lot? Is there anybody listening on streaming who understand that Jesus cares? When your eyes are filled with tears, Jesus cares. When your friends have forsaken and fled, Jesus cares. When your feet stumble along life's journey, Jesus cares. When your heart skips a beat or two, Jesus cares. I stopped to tell somebody, you go ahead and sing this morning because you're happy, and sing because you're free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he's watching me. It does not matter the problem. It does not matter the situation. Jesus came from heaven down, and he cares all about your struggle. You don't believe Jesus cares? Ask the woman with the issue of blood, and she'll tell you that all I had to do is touch the hem of his garment. You don't believe he cares? Ask Jairus, whose daughter was dead, and Jesus came in and raised her from the dead. If you don't believe he cares, ask the 5,000 hungry people who he fed with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. You don't believe Jesus cared? Ask blind Bartimaeus. He'll tell you, I was blind, but he touched me, and now I can see. I know he cares, for he went all the way to Calvary when nothing else could help. Nothing could help our condition. Jesus cared. The law couldn't do it. The prophets couldn't do it. The kings couldn't do it. The judges couldn't do it. The presidents can't do it. The popes can't do it. The governor can't do it. But it was in Jesus Christ. And Jesus went all the way to Calvary, and he hung his head and died. He died because he cared. He died because he loved us. And when you feel like you want to get away, just remember your victory is in Jesus. For after they put him in a borrowed tomb, aren't you glad that early Sunday morning he got up out of the grave with all power in his hand? And the same power that raised Jesus is the same power that's working in you. He cares about discrimination. He cares about racism. He cares about fighting against each other. He cares about the enemy's attack. And I'm so glad that there is the question that when you're standing at a crossroad, and what do you do? When you understand that the world's on your shoulder, and when your back is up against the wall, what do? You hold on and keep the faith. Tell somebody, come on and tell somebody, come on and keep the faith. Come on and comfort somebody. Come on, where do you look when there's nowhere else to look? Where do you turn when there's nowhere else to turn? Where do you go when there's nowhere else to go? What do you do when there's nothing else to do? You gotta remember you're in the master's hand and the master has a plan. So hold on and keep the faith. I wish I could get about 100 people who would shout, I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna hold on. God's got a plan. Before you check out, before you overdose, before you drink the drink, before you take your life, hold on. God's got a plan, and his plan is working for you. When rebellion comes against you, his plan is working for you. When sickness comes against you, his plan is working from you. I wish I had 2 or 3 that would bless his name and say, I'm going to hold on. Are you going to hold on at home? Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. I got to hold on. So you want to get away. You want to get away. David said, I understand. I understand when you want to get away. There's a sheet that I gave you. And it's called Keep the Faith. Turn to that sheet. And those who are viewing, you can go to your stream. Go to Facebook to our stream right now. And you'll be able to see. It's a sheet that I gave everyone. If you don't have one, it has the words to keep the faith. I want to encourage somebody this morning that if you turn and look there on Facebook, there's a song that says keep the faith. We're going to play that right now. I want you to hear it and let it minister to you. And those of you who can go to the Facebook, you can see the video.
Question is, when you're standing at a crossroad, what do you do? When a fork is in the road, what do you do? When the world is on your shoulders, what do you do? When your back is up against the wall, what do you do? What do you do? You hold on and keep the faith. Keep the faith. Where do you go when there's nowhere else to go? Where do you turn when there's nowhere else to turn? Where do you look when there's nowhere else to look? What do you do when there's nothing else to do? You're in the master's hands, and the master has a plan. Hold on, and keep the faith. Keep the faith. God has done it before. He can do it again. Praise God. Praise God. Victory is mine. Victory is mine. Victory is yours. Victory is ours. Keep the faith. Keep the faith. Keep the faith. Keep the faith.
I said somebody got to keep the faith this morning. I know you feel like running. I know you feel like fleeing. But I want you to hold on, because victory is yours if you keep the faith. How many of you going to keep the faith today?
If you're looking for dynamic worship, inspirational teaching, and a friendly atmosphere, you can visit us on Sundays at 221 West Bradley Street in Gastonia, North Carolina. For more information about our ministry, you can call 704-865-9016. To order your personal copy of today's message or any other broadcast, please call 704-865-9016 and indicate the broadcast date. Or you can just visit us online at www.friendshipgastonia.com. Thank you for tuning in to today's broadcast with Bishop John A. McCullough II and the Friendship Christian Church. Make sure you join us next week at the same time. And